The following conversation was recorded about a year ago. My brother and I were discussing 9/11, and when I went back and listened to the recording, I was like, wow, this is actually kind of interesting, and people who study 9/11 might be interested in it because it kind of gives a viewpoint of a couple different levels of understanding of the events of that day. So I bring to you a brother-sister conversation about 9/11.
Disbelieved they could happen.
Yeah, I was too.
I didn't know what. But I just didn't see how it was possible because I had heard of a B-52 bomber hitting one of the Empire State Building during World War II, going full speed, and it hit one, and there was a fire, but it didn't do nothing to the structural integrity of the building. I mean, if it was that serious, then it would have done some serious structural damage to the building. They would have talked about it. And their saying was, yeah, it tore up the inside of the rooms, but yeah, you see this big steel giant girder right here? You see that little bent right there? That's where the plane hit it.
Barely bent the giant steel girder.
Yeah. Of course, you know, the stuff on it upstairs and downstairs below the steel girder was gone. The interconnecting walls that were non-bearing and all that stuff in the floor. But yeah, there's the beam right there. It stopped it cold.
A B-52
hit
the
Empire State Building.
Empire State Building in what year was that? And during World War II at some time.
It was in a cloud bank, and got turned around and hit that smack dab center on.
Did anyone die? Do you remember?
Yeah, people died.
In the office.
Yeah, but the building didn't come close to collapsing. It just wiped out the floors above and below the beam.
Right.
But didn't take out the beam.
And the non-load-bearing walls got destroyed.
Did you see the reason for the buildings collapsing that they had on TV? It's because of the hollow in it on the inside. I can't remember what the reason.
The elevator tube on the inside?
Yeah, something. The way that was built. Somehow since the plane was just refueled, somehow all the fuel got in there and caused it to collapse.
So every single weld then got disrupted at the same time?
I know.
And the beams all melted.
When everybody saw the smoke coming out of that building, it was black. It was black smoke coming out of a couple of windows, not the whole building, right? They had a fire in Jakarta, India, happened sometime around that time, where the whole building erupted. Like a Roman candle, okay? And beams got red hot and everything, but nothing collapsed. A few things here and there, but nothing collapsed. The structure stayed
And it burned for hours, didn't
Not
it?
so perfectly.
Hours and hours. I mean, with beams, you could see the red hot beams, right? And everything else gone at the top. Fuel from the bottom going up, and torched it, cooked the heck out of it.
But you know how much they have to work, like in Vegas and places where they collapse those big buildings with the implosion? Oh, it's just like those two buildings.
You know, is that almost part of the preconditioning that they get us used to seeing buildings? They showed us all those shows for how many years of them blowing up buildings and having them drop.
But yeah, they
right,
think about it. They control that stuff.
Alien weapon explodes.
Well, no, I mean, they go in and wire a building, right, and blow it up and show it on TV how the experts blow up buildings and how they fall down.
Right.
And they did that for years on TV, showing how the experts did it, and then all of a sudden, okay, now we got this falling, and it was by this. So we're used
to seeing it falling.
It's almost preconditioning.
Right.
Because they control what gets on TV. And I think they do it in advance. So
but you think that people would think then it was just conventional explosives that brought the buildings down. But people didn't go there. I think if you think about it, you go to the internet for answers, and they redirect you, perhaps, away from what you originally thought might
for sure.
be the issue.
Yeah, who knows, right? I mean, there's just a ton of stuff that...
What was the first thing you read on the internet about it that made you think, this could possibly be true?
I'm just trying to think. What was the first thing about that? Okay. Yeah, I was talking to an engineer, a former Army explosives expert. who used to train people at some Army school of demolition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he was selling a product for your yard that would get rid of mulch. Okay, nitrates being part of this solution, just like this other stuff with nitrates being part of it. Anyway, so somehow we started talking about it, and he just said, "Oh, it's impossible." He said that building fell down at free fall speed due to the alleged collapse of one floor due to fire.
Did he have a answer?
He says it's impossible. The rest of that building didn't heat up at that temperature, so why did it all drop at the same time like it did? It's impossible. He said those floors were designed for 10 times the estimated load capacity, and they were only loaded at 1/10 of their rated capacity, right? He says those floors were designed to be filled front to back, as many as you could get them grand pianos.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's the weight-bearing load when they plan those floors. And he said, and then they plan for the heaviest load, and being good engineers at the time, you go say, well, we'll do that by 10. Or some crazy amount. That's how they, make safe, right? Well, so if you take everything into consideration, that there's, even if one floor completely collapsed, one floor was capable of holding 3 floors by itself.
Right.
Because none of the floors were loaded to anywhere near capacity. The whole floors were office floors.
Right.
With desks.
Shouldn't we have seen then in the rubble pile desks? Do you think about it? There were no desks in the rubber pile.
Well, where was all the beams?
Where's the beams?
What happened to all the beams when that thing collapsed? Beams don't disappear.
Some people are thinking we never ever saw the real picture of the rubble pile, and we never saw the real film of the buildings collapsed.
Well, they're talking about finding a micronized, small carbon balls by the huge amounts of them all over the place, which leads people to think they were using molecular reactions, like what you get when you burn aluminum with iron.
Couldn't it have been just conventional explosives?
It could have been that they wired in there, but there's some folks saying that they use a low-level nuke as well. Low-level nukes were used.
I've read there's a lot of Fetzer, Jim Fetzer says stuff like that, and Judy Wood, Dr. Judy Wood, she wrote a book.
There's radiation that was found and hot for some period of time that was there.
Yeah, Dirty Bomb could have done that.
Where it came from, who knows? But
if it's a true report.
There are many different accounts I've heard that kind of, they don't get far, but they talk about, early reports talk about radiation levels. And then some people talk about finding radiation levels a month afterwards from the pile of what was left.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird reports and stories, like fingers found on rooftops far away, and then engine parts found between building cracks. And it's like, but I followed a bunch of these up, and they lead nowhere.
Could be, yeah.
So I try and follow up evidence, but...
I mean, there's also the fact that one of the largest gold reserves in the United States was located underneath there.
Right. And if it was a planned explosion, then it was removed well before the day of the event.
They found a dump truck in the tunnel from the World Trade Center to this other subway, because they can move dump trucks underground all over the place.
Right.
They got the connections.
And I researched that story.
Yeah?
And it all comes from someone who's already in the media.
Okay.
It's his report.
Okay.
And I think he's in part of with the hoax.
Who knows?
So I try and research, who are the people claiming this? I'll tell you what, they're all part of media. We have yet to find an independent
I'll tell you what, though.
report
If I was
on 9/11.
If I was an independent guy, I would rather give my information to somebody like that than do it myself. Because you can claim being a reporter. Me, I'm kind of scared to get my name out there necessarily.
Yeah, they don't do anything. They don't need to. We could talk all we want. Back to that day, 9/11, when it happened. So, Mom, you said you were in LA. And how did you first hear about it?
TV.
Woke up in the morning and turned the TV on.
Just regular, and so the whatever's the
I
morning
saw
show.
the one happen.
Yeah.
I actually saw, allegedly, as it happened for one of them. I think it was probably the second one, because
It'd be the second
it'd
one.
be the second one I was watching, because I was watching the first one smoke. And I had the TV on, and it was in the morning, and I was getting ready to go to work, and I had kind of slowed way down after the first one got hit, and I'm going, damn, look at that. And I'm thinking, what are they doing, right? I mean, it's smoking, and they're talking, you're following it, then all of a sudden out of the blue, right, the second one comes in, and they pan in on it, and you see it happen. It was unbelievable.
Hello, this is Kay breaking in here. My brother just said he saw the plane hit live, and it was unbelievable. Well, let's read from the Wikipedia on the timeline for the day of September 11th, from the Wikipedia. At 9:03:02, Flight 175 crashes at about 590 miles per hour into the south face of the South Tower of the World Trade Center between floors 77 and 85. Blah, 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 blah. The impact severs communication with several television and radio broadcast towers at the WTC local station WPIX's satellites feed freezes on an image of the second impact, which is all the station broadcast until alternative transmitters are set up hours later. So what does this mean? Nobody saw it live. They saw the plane approach the tower, but they did not see the after effects of that impact until several hours later. So a lot of people, like my brother, they say they saw it live, when in fact they did not.
Right.
What did I think at first? I believed it hit.
Because they're telling you it hit, right?
It showed it hitting. I didn't see the first one other than their replay.
So you know that second hit? So Simon Shack of September Clues, what he did is he reversed the video because it's out and then it pans in perfectly. Then the plane comes in and hits the building. However, if you rewind that, when he's panned out, you should see the plane on its arrival.
Okay.
Its trajectory should have been there.
And it wasn't.
It wasn't there. The plane came from nowhere.
So it was a visual illusion so that they could blow it up from the inside.
Pretty much. And they're thinking it was filmed way in advance, as some of the
Well,
interviews
they've got the
were filmed in
holographics
advance.
capabilities.
In order to
do
have
that, I hear.
holographics, you need machines, and you need all over the place.
Yeah.
So where were these machines?
Well, they could just be sticking out of the corners of all these other buildings.
I don't think that'd be too hard, I think, to make. Why not just film it ahead? If you think, what's the easiest way to make this happen? It's like a magician,
But
right?
didn't you have people there seeing it happen?
They said, but they're all part of the media.
And you can't find any of the people that actually saw it?
Nope, that are
Talk about
independent.
it.
I've interviewed a couple. There's this dude called David Weiss, and we had him on our show, and I interviewed him, and his story started falling apart. So I don't know.
Okay.
We're investigating and trying to figure out if these guys are lying.
Yeah, we're spoon-fed all kinds of stuff.
Right.
I think a lot more than we think. I mean, even me, a lot more than I think. Huh?
Right. So
Is it really true that there weren't any Jews that died?
there weren't anybody that died, is what we're finding out. The towers had been emptied since 1993.
No, Mom's talking World War II.
For what? World War II or the Twin Towers?
Twin Towers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We don't think anybody died.
Well, they can't prove no any Jews died, that's for sure. There were other people that died.
Well, if we've September Clues is a blog.info. They have looked into every single victim,
Yeah.
every one.
Okay.
And to this day, there's not a set amount of victims. And they've looked into the victims' stories. So you have the same victim, and maybe she'll be smiling and her head will be cocked to the right. All her photos, smiling, head cocked to the right. They're using the same image and photoshopping all the different photos.
Okay.
The question is, if these were real victims, why Photoshop all their photos?
Easiest?
What?
The one that showed up first, and so they just copied it. 'Cause
They
it
didn't
was
ask the
quickest.
family then, didn't go to these memorials and
No.
say, here's some better pictures
No,
of
people
my
are lazy,
beloved
they're
son.
reporting. A lot of people rely on base stuff, just like gardeners. There's a lot of parents out there, they hear this other stuff and they write it down. They don't do no research. They hear it, sounds good, I'm putting it in.
I don't know, if my kid died, I'd want a really nice memorial for him. And the same
Yeah.
people that show up before Congress to
Yeah.
complain about their kid still didn't put any other photo except the shitty one in the 9/11 memorials. So it doesn't match, it doesn't make sense. If you're that active stopping terrorist legislation, then why don't you upload better photos for your kid?
I don't know.
Well, that doesn't make sense. And then there's a naming, how they named. So hoi polloi put this dude on the internet put all their names alphabetical, and you started to see this weird, like, they made it alphabetical. And he found in the EXIF data of these pictures, can you fix the edges of this? Can you fix that? I mean, like, directions on how to make it look more real. So it's bizarre. So, Mom, we don't think anybody died. Because remember the original bombing in 1993? The stupid Arab with the van that blew up in the basement?
Yes, they filmed that. That was on ABC News like once. When they actually had the Arab who filmed it, because he was the handler for the Arabs. He provided the explosives.
The FBI dude.
The FBI dude.
Yeah. And they admit, Mom, the FBI admitted they did everything. They supplied the direction, they supplied the materials, they supplied the plan,
And the only
they rented
reason
the
it got
van.
filmed is because this guy was fearing a double cross. He was a
He
smart.
should fear.
He was another Arab. He was a Syrian or something, and he was like a businessman. And he was smelling a double cross. He'd been in Arab countries long enough to. You got to cover your back that way, I think, right? And so he filmed it all. And that saved his ass because it proved that, hey man, FBI, I'm telling you, I'm giving you these explosives to these guys just like you told me I'm supposed to, and here it is, I'm doing it like you told me I'm supposed to. You're getting this live, I'm sending it back to you, and blah blah blah. It saved his life that he filmed it. And if they parked where they were supposed to have parked, they'd have knocked down several floors.
I don't think they were meant to. I think it was mainly a ploy to remove. Because if you follow the plan, they had to have the building emptied in order to plant the conventional explosives, right?
Okay.
And all the people who said they worked there were all part of the three big companies who also have offices other places. So they mostly use the Twin Towers as like their mail drop. Because
Sure, there were a lot of empty floors there. And the CIA
Right.
had big offices all over the place. FBI had offices.
So if they're in on it, and if they plan the demolition anyway, you would take steps not to kill people because dead people leave a lot of loose ends. A lot of loose ends. You got family members who are pissed at
Well,
money,
maybe there's not too many poor people in that building that got whacked.
or maybe nobody got whacked.
Well, what about all those firemen?
Well, there you go. If you have to accept that it was a planned ahead demolition, then they're planned ahead actors and they didn't die either.
They had
There's
to
a lot of
disappear.
evidence. Well, they had a drill that was supposed to be the day after on September 12th. So in town, you had all these military people who had already come to town and set up their shop on the day of 9/11.
Isn't that funny how often you got drills surrounding all these acts of bloodshed?
So we do have reports from individuals that the subways were shut down and the streets were blocked off. You couldn't even get to Lower Manhattan on
Well,
that
what
day.
happened to all the guys that were, all the firemen?
They were actors. What they said was a lie. It never happened. Those scenes that you saw,
So that whole unit that was supposedly died didn't.
no, they didn't. That's if you're going to accept that it's a pre-planned demolition. Like any building, right? When you plan a demolition, you don't put people in
Well, they
harm's
always
way.
talk about
Well, the
I
bad
don't
guys
know.
don't got no problem sacrificing folks for their ends.
Because they
They
always
love
and
sacrificing
they talk
innocent
about.
people.
You hear people talking about they knew the guy, one of the guys. And so,
Right. It's all the fake media coming through your television set that need to support that 9/11 really happened.
Well, the building's down.
Because they changed a bunch of legislation, they changed a bunch of laws because of that one event. We went into Iraq to
Oh,
take their
sure.
oil. No Iraqis flew planes in the
Oh, yeah.
Trade Center. Yet that still happened, and people still approved it.
Well, the building's down. There's no dismissing the fact the building got knocked down.
That's the only thing we know, is the building was down.
You can't debate that fact. It got
And there's
knocked
evidence
down.
that there was a large EMP pulse at the same time.
Some type of beamed weapon.
They think it's just regular EMP pulse that knocked out all the electronic communications systems. Like
Well,
all the cell phones stopped
What I
working.
knew
and-
for be certain, though, what really tuned it in for me, dialed it in for me regarding all that, was the plane that hit the World Trade Center, or the plane that hit the Pentagon.
Right.
Okay, that's what dialed it in, because for me it was like, it was pretty clear when you had evidence afterwards. It was, there's a whole front yard inside of that building, and they got a little wing section back here, and that's it.
And like a bent piece of metal
Yeah.
that was sitting on the lawn.
And that's the remnants of some big ass
Jetliner. Right?
Hitting this 4-story building, right? Okay, number one, I know all those things had those like 12-foot wide super turboprop fans. Those are made out of titanium.
Oh,
The
yeah.
hardest metals made.
They're
Those
not gonna
two things would have
destroy.
been sheared right off, and they'd been sitting right outside that building.
Right? There was no wing damage even.
Where's the wings?
It was just a circle.
It was just a circle.
Did you see that, Mom?
Yeah. Remember that? It was just a circle that went into the building?
So if the Pentagon said a plane hit it and clearly it didn't, then what about the Twin Towers?
That's my point. Then that called into question everything, because where's the wings? Okay, if I buy your story about this building, the plane went inside and just got destroyed, but there's no marks for the wings, so they have to be sitting on the ground. Where are they?
Right.
And where's the landing gear? Landing gear is big, giant, titanium, huge, super strongest things on the plane besides the turbines. Oh, and they're not out. They're nowhere to be seen. So
No,
that's
right.
when I knew phony.
There's no flames even. There's phones hanging and papers sitting on edges. If a plane had hit that and burst, wouldn't those things be
Well, that
fired
was the
up?
side of the building that the Pentagon had strengthened just in the last year.
How about they put explosives in the last year?
Well, they claimed they strengthened that whole wall, making it blast resistant, and then they were tending to do all the Pentagon
Maybe they
walls,
did. Maybe they protect other walls against.
and they did this one first. So they say it went through like 4 layers inside deep, but who knows? They could have put explosives there. It's too coincidental. Again,
You think that's too much, Mom? That all the TV's lying about the 9/11 day? Because if you think about it,
it's deep.
it's deep. What it really is a bunch of intelligence operations and a bunch of news media outlets all saying the same story.
The only thing I question is the firemen that died.
What if they didn't die?
Well,
What if
what
they
if
were
they did-
placed? What if their unit was fake in the first place and got put in there ahead of time in order that they could say they died?
Well,
And they just go on to their regular life after that.
the firemen are close. I don't believe that part.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they died.
Well, we're all speculating. I got no
I
proof.
think they're dead one way. They don't like to leave loose lips. I think they would just, if that was the plan, then they'd just off all the firemen.
Yeah.
Because where are the firemen? They died in 9/11.
Right.
Because otherwise, you're going to hear about it from
You got too
somebody.
many loose
It would
ends.
leak out.
Something like that. They'd have to go in seclusion someplace for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not that many.
Is my
Yeah.
thought.
That's true. I see your point. How does everyone keep quiet?
You know, time after time after time. I think they end up, all these people, it's under threat for most. Threat of what will happen to them.
And what if they didn't sign up for that in the first place, but they got wrangled into it? You know, whatever hoax they're part of.
You threaten me, if I got, these days, if you threatened me and I had a family and you offered me money, I'd say, thank
Sure.
you, sir, may I have another?
Right?
Yeah, man, I'm right
Yes,
on board
sir.
with you. Yeah, I'm going to tell them whatever they want to hear and be enthusiastic.